Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content, and please like and subscribe. Before we get to the podcast, if you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
Welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm Britt. I'm here with Brad. And Brad, we're missing somebody today.
Yeah, we think Jeff's on vacation, but
again,
he's always on vacation. I mean, he needs a vacation from his vacation, I guess. So he's globetrotting somewhere today, but the show must go on.
Yeah, it must. In fact, we've got really a great show today, a really informative show about a really important topic. So we're going to dive right in today. And Brad, this show's kind of personal for you because we're going to talk today about safety and specifically about concussion injuries. And I know you've got some personal experience with your son.
Yeah, my youngest son, Brady, I think, I don't know, we'll ask the good doctor today about having a propensity for concussions, but he seemed to just be a walking concussion during his sports journey, starting probably, I think it was in 5th grade. He's had at least 3 concussions, 3 different sports, one in football, one in basketball, one in baseball. It's a very scary thing to have happen to the kid because they're not sure kind of how to handle it and they're feeling so different. It's very scary for the parents. It's also very frustrating because trying to decide when is the right time, when concussion protocol starts, when it ends. You're constantly nagging your kid. Does your head still hurt? How are you feeling? And it's frustrating for all parties. And so I think it's just one of the most fascinating things to study in sports today. And it has such an impact, especially on football, but also cheerleading, also hockey, and in terms of the popularity of the sport's impacted by the concern of concussions.
Yeah, football season's about to start, which is why we thought that made a lot of sense today to talk about this. But you bring up a good point. I mean, my kids ended up specializing in tennis, and concussions isn't a big deal in tennis. But as you said, and your son had concussions in 3 different sports. So it's not just football. So those of you who aren't football families, there's still a lot of valuable information here for them as well.
So we reached out to Northside Hospital here in Atlanta, and we asked, for their best concussion specialist, and they recommended Dr. Abigail Fader. And Dr. Fader got her undergrad at Marquette, her PhD in neuropsychology, I was right, from Central Michigan, and then she did her fellowship at University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, where she specialized in concussions from athletes from youth sports all the way to professional sports. So Dr. Fader, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you today. And maybe just to start this conversation off, can you just tell us a little bit more? Brad gave a little bit of your bio, but tell us a little bit about how you got into this and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I really got interested in the field of neuropsychology, which is all brain behavior relationships, essentially. And a lot of that field ends up being more neurodegenerative processes. But then I found concussion. And the great thing about concussion is it's treatable and people get better from it. So it's a really encouraging field to work in, not only because of that, but we're learning so much more about how we can be better at treating it. We don't just have to wait and see anymore or rub some dirt on it. We've really progressed beyond those phases of concussion management.
Dr. Fader, what is technically a concussion? Like, what happens to the brain when someone has a concussion?
Yeah, for the most part, we're not expecting big structural damage like bleeding, swelling, anything like that. It's more of on the metabolic level. So there's kind of an imbalance of certain things in and out of the cell. And it's really just an energy crisis. It takes a ton of energy to regulate that. Mm-hmm. What that means in the day-to-day is people feel more fatigued. They have a host of symptoms like headache, dizziness, visual complaints, light and noise sensitivity, kind of stemming from that initial energy crisis. And then we're kind of working to treat those inefficiencies kind of in that brain functioning.
So how is it determined, the seriousness of it? How is it evaluated at the moment or within the first 24 hours? How do you guys go about evaluating just kind of what level it is? And are there levels still in terms of concussions?
Yeah, we don't necessarily use like that grading scale anymore. It's moved to more of a nuanced kind of what type or what kind of profiles of symptoms are you having. Fewer profiles of symptoms, probably a less complicated recovery. More profiles of symptoms, meaning like headaches, dizziness problems, vision problems, cognitive problems. Those are making maybe a more complicated recovery. The more of these symptom profiles or kind of concussion types we're seeing represented.
Can people have concussions? We talked about it. It shows up in a lot of different sports. And it's easy, when you see somebody get absolutely clobbered in the head in football, but it doesn't take a huge hit to end up with a concussion, right?
Yeah, and it's really interesting. From biomechanics research, we know the same hit for one person can equal a concussion. That same hit for a different person doesn't necessarily equate to a concussion. So we found that the way that you're hit, whether your muscles are ready for the hit, among other risk factors that you may have pre-injury, such as migraine history, motion sickness history, ocular motor problems, anxiety, that those can all maybe lead to a little higher likelihood of sustaining a concussion.
So is it something that happened? Is it something you're saying that happened in the past, or is it something someone could be born just with more propensity for having concussions?
Yeah, sometimes it could be something that somebody's born with. Ocular motor problems like lazy eye, we tend to see that that's maybe a more vulnerable system than after a concussion, or developing a migraine history over time. Or probably of a lot of interest to people is not rehabbing from a concussion appropriately and maybe still having some problems going on, whether it's, I never thought my vision never got back to normal. I'm still kind of dizzy when I move certain ways. I've just gotten used to it. That may have never rehabbed and be a little bit vulnerable to getting another concussion then.
So I'm going to ask you to kind of break it down for us a little bit.
Yeah.
What exactly happens? I mean, I've got an idea, but what exactly happens when somebody is concussed?
So if we look at it, you take that force to the head causes the brain to move within the skull. That cerebrospinal fluid, so that fluid around it, usually cushions it from many blows. But if we get enough movement, it kind of leads to that subsequent energy crisis. Among other things, potassium and calcium kind of get out of ratio inside and out of the cells. These little cellular pumps are working away to get it back to normal. So all the energy goes to that. That's why people might have like memory loss surrounding an injury, because that's just not a maybe high priority process for the brain at the time.
So Dr. Fader, we always hear about these NFL athletes, especially, or these hockey athletes that seem to come back faster after a concussion than maybe a youth athlete or a high school athlete. Is that true? Is it based on the age or the development of their brain or
Yeah,
like that?
A couple of really interesting things about that actually is one, we do have some research that this adolescent age group compared to even younger children and then collegiate professional athletes maybe at a little bit more risk of having a difficult recovery. There's a lot of hormone changes. There's a lot of other stressors that come at that age group. We know that stress anxiety can be a risk factor for having a longer recovery. And then potentially we've always kind of thought if you have a concussion, you're maybe at a higher risk of having another one. It's a lot more nuanced, though, as we kind of pull that question apart. And we found if you get the right care, so I've done research comparing first, second, and third concussions, that we can get you better faster with subsequent concussions. You know what to expect. It's not as scary. You know how to rehab it. Your team around you knows how to rehab it. So that might be why we're seeing some professional athletes really bouncing back. In addition to perhaps getting to that level of support, we've selected out people who maybe have some of these risk factors for having a tougher time.
Are the symptoms consistent across everybody, or does each person have kind of their own unique symptoms that show that they have a concussion? That was always what was so frustrating, is like you read online the symptoms of concussion, but maybe your child or your kid doesn't have those exact symptoms, but they still have a concussion.
Yeah, we know that there's certain symptoms that tend to be more common. Almost like 75% of concussions have headache, but that means there's a good chunk that don't have headache, even though that's a hallmark symptom. You think of concussion, you think your head hurts. So we know not everyone has the same symptoms, and we know each individual across different concussions may present in a different way. They may be really dizzy with one, and then they may be more foggy, cognitively kind of slowed down with another one.
Okay.
So let's talk about that. So for parents whose kids are playing sports and they get their bell rung, and it's not, I mean, it doesn't look terrible, but what are they looking for, and what should trigger a parent to say, I think I'm going to go get them checked out?
Yeah, we've moved a long way away from the how many fingers am I holding up?
Yeah.
Are you good with that? To we've got really good sideline assessments, especially at the high school level. Athletic trainers are getting really, really good at this with ocular motor and vestibular testing. So fancy ways of saying we're looking at how eyes are moving, whether with certain head movements, we're getting dizzy with those. We know that those particular tests are really sensitive to concussion. Balance testing on the sideline. And then there's even some like iPad-based computerized cognitive testing that you can do on the sideline to get a quick really assessment. So we're looking at it more than just, hey, do you have a headache? They're like, no, I want to get back out there, coach. To, hey, let's look at this a little bit more objectively. And we know erring on the side of caution with that is better. On the front end, it's better to get pulled from play than to try and put your head down and play through it. Because, not just because your parents care about you and they want you to be better, but we know that those who stay in play, even if they don't take another hit, even just 15 more minutes of play can be twice as long of a recovery than just coming out and getting treatment. So I tell athletes all the time, I was like, play it safe. I'd rather you missed half a game, and it turns out it wasn't a concussion. Maybe your neck hurt or something that was causing it. Then you try and play through it, and now we've missed the rest of the season because this is really blown up on us.
So that kind of covers high school where they've got doctors on the sidelines and so on and so forth. What about youth football where they don't have all that? I mean, what would your advice be to parents in those situations? Yeah,
your child better than anybody. Do they look like they're playing different? Are they usually really aggressive and now they're tentative? Are they usually really on it on what play they're on? Are they looking around confused? They're going to the wrong sidelines. Those are obviously big signs. Go check in with them. Have a coach ask them, do you have a headache? Are you dizzy? Are the lights bothering you all of a sudden? Are they crying? Are they suddenly tearful or some kind of personality change like that? Can be some more tangible things that a parent could see at that time.
Dr. Fader, do you guys still do baseline testing? Is it something you guys are big proponents of? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so baseline testing essentially gives us pre-injury while somebody is healthy. How do they look we can do it with not only cognitive functioning, so memory, attention, speed of processing, but also balance and that kind of thing. And that lets us know, for you, when are you back to your normal if you were to sustain an injury? Sometimes we have people who are the highest of the highest on all of these things. We want to know that just getting back to average isn't normal for them. Or if somebody has a history of learning disability or ADHD, that we want to know where they are getting back to, because that may be different than the kid sitting next to them in class.
Okay.
So I don't know a lot about that, but so for parents out there, I mean, what do you suggest in terms of them getting their kid baseline tested? I mean, should everybody do that? What are your thoughts on all that?
I think it's a really valuable tool. It, not only gets you that information, but gets you kind of set up, where to go should your child sustain a concussion. We feel really fortunate to be able to offer that service in our clinic. Some really affordable baseline testing. You come in 30 minutes, sit on the computer, do the testing. We have an adolescent and adult version, and then we have a more pediatric version as well, for a little bit more developmentally appropriate.
Interesting.
So let's talk about how the treatment of concussions. Back in the day, you were told to sit in a room, be in the dark. How is that involved in terms of what the treatment of what you guys were recommending for the quickest recovery from a concussion?
Yeah, I love that question. That is my passion.
Don't tell him that.
I always ask great questions, I know.
is we can treat this, because it used to be just go wait it out. You'll get better. You check in with a doctor 2 weeks later, like, oh, you're still not better. Just wait it out. Stay out of school a couple more weeks. We've really done research comparing that strict rest-based approach, so the cocooning, the dark room, to more of a moderated, hey, let's get back to a routine. Let's build some structure and support around you. Let's take breaks if we need to. Let's not go back to contact until we're symptom-free. And we found that those in that strict rest-based group, so the staying in the dark, take way longer to recover and actually report more symptoms over time, which, you'd think you're resting, you're taking it easy. That's going to make it better, but it actually gives us more times to sit in the dark, have a lot of time to think about how poorly we feel, thinking about how Timmy's taking our starting spot.
Missing out on everything.
Yeah, we're missing an AP exam. So we found that that's less helpful.
So you talked about age, different things. I want to talk a little bit about the difference in older kids or older athletes versus younger athletes. And, the big dilemma of the day for a lot of parents is, when do I let my kids play football or other heavy contact sports? So, what is the difference in a young kid at 8, 9, 10 years old, with that kind of contact versus a more developed kid?
We're looking a lot at that age. We know prevention, the best research support we have is for good tackling form and for good neck control and neck muscles. So we're knowing that we want them to be at an age where they can develop those neck muscles, perhaps be in a strength program, and maybe at those younger ages focusing more on flag football or where they're working on tackling form, but not necessarily full contact yet at that point. And then as they get older, they have that neck strength, which we do know is such a big factor in preventing injury, then looking more into introducing contact.
Do you see predominantly football players, or are you seeing, what all the sports are you seeing at Northside?
You mentioned cheer. We see a lot of falls off of there. We see a lot of bases who are actually catching the flyers, getting kicked, kneed, elbowed in the head. Plenty of soccer, lacrosse, maybe a little bit less of, volleyball and those kind of sports.
Tennis.
I think I've only ever seen one tennis out there. Someone got hit with a serve in the back of the head, and that was still a questionable one.
They didn't play with that person again.
They found a new partner, yeah.
Is there anything that an athlete can do to give them a better opportunity to avoid a concussion? Is hydration a key, or what are steps that an athlete can take to give the best chances to maybe lessen the concussion symptoms or not get a concussion, I guess?
I'd say one, we just hit on neck strengthening. Get a good neck strengthening program with a weight training coach at school or with a strength coach. At the younger level, obviously, like we said, just assessing that risk of getting into contact. Managing risk factors, like we talked about. If you have a history of migraines, getting those managed, not just living with those. Same with, it might not sound like it makes sense, but anxiety accounts for a lot of prolonged recovery and maybe even a propensity towards concussion. So managing that on the front end, being honest that that's a case. I see people all the time, undiagnosed anxiety, it really gets out of control after a concussion. Those who have it really well in hand, it's a totally different recovery. They're really self-aware. So getting ahead and managing those on the front end. And being aware, if you get a concussion, taking care of it right away, not sitting back and waiting for it or hoping that if you play through it a couple more weeks, it'll just go away on its own.
So that's really interesting, the whole anxiety piece, because of course we're in a time where anxiety is off the charts for our young people. So concussions have a direct impact on making that situation worse.
It can, not only because of the injury. We can sometimes see that sympathetic nervous system or that fight or flight response system can be good before a game to get you amped up, but if it's out of control, you're just feeling anxious on edge all the time. So concussion can impact that. But then if we have poor management strategies, the missing school, the feeling isolated from peers, the missing the physical activity component, which we know actually can help us get better from concussion, can all make people feel more anxious. Then they feel worse, and then it really spirals.
So I said at the beginning, we're kind of moving into football season. What does that do for y'all's group?
It keeps us a little bit busier. We never want kids to get injured, but we're happy that we're there to help them get back to normal. And I think the really positive thing is I've said a lot of things like, oh, this can make it worse and this can make it worse, but we've actually gotten really good at treating it. It's a treatable injury. So we get to employ a lot of the strategies that we've learned. So we take that particular pattern of symptoms that somebody has and we target a treatment to that. It's not everybody gets the same treatment plan. It's, okay, you're dizzy with side-to-side dynamic movement. We're going to get you a vestibular rehab plan. So essentially movement-based, exercise-based rehab. It can be helpful. We're looking at if there's school problems or cognitive problems. We're fortunate to have an education coordinator in clinic, so we get a note to school, to the athletic trainer, to the assistant principal if it's at the elementary school level, and get them back in school, but with some supports around them. And then we've got further down the road other treatments as needed.
So, Dr. Fader, what's the best way for someone to reach out to your institute or the hospital to get more information, to get baseline testing, to obviously get treatment if they feel like their child has a concussion? What's the best way to contact you guys?
Yeah, I mean, giving our front office a call. They're fantastic. We can check in with them. They'll get you on the schedule. We'll get you any information we need. If we need to kind of triage it, we've got athletic trainers that can give you that information as well.
I can testify as a customer or what do you want, a customer or a parent of a customer, a frequent customer. Northside's done a great job taking care of my kids, so I highly recommend them.
So we've got an audience that's all across the country. So I assume in most cities there's going to be a hospital, at least one that has, that specializes in this. Would you recommend that parents, find out before they need it, where those places are? And
I do think so, and I think it's asking a couple right questions. You don't have to be an expert in this to find the right care. Is it, hey, are you going to give me a tailored treatment plan, or am I going to get the same thing as everybody else? Are you guys using an active plan? What do you think of exercise, non-contact during treatment? What do you think of me getting back to school? Finding people that are going to treat this actively, target it to your athlete, I think is really important to screen out somebody who's going to get you the best evidence-based kind of cutting-edge care.
Cool. Well, this is super important information. We barely scratched the surface, I know. Before we let you go, though, anything else that, is top of mind for you that parents or coaches out there ought to know about?
Yeah, I think this doesn't have to be a life-changing injury. There's a lot of really scary headlines out there, and a lot of the research that's being done is much less sexy. It's not getting the headlines because it shows that actually people recover from this. You can have multiple concussions and you can be okay. We want to recover between injuries. So we don't necessarily take it seriously, but it doesn't have to be something that we are terrified of. We can really come at it and we can treat it and get people better and live full, happy lives after concussions.
Well, that's awesome information. And it's not all the information we have today because, Brad, this is just part one or the first segment in this episode. So I don't want you to turn it off. We've got two other guests that are coming on immediately following here, Dr. Fader, and that really talk about concussion prevention. And so with that, Dr. Fader, thanks so much for joining us. Your expertise was super informative to us, and I know to our audience as well, and we really appreciate all you're doing to help our kids.
Thank you so much for the time. I love getting the word out about this, that it's changed, we're better at it. So I appreciate you guys giving me a chance to reach people to get that out.
Of course. Well, thanks so much. We're going to listen to a little note from our sponsor, and then we'll be back with two more guests, so hang in there with us.
Jeff Francoeur here with Pure Athlete. Before we get to today's guest, I want to share with everyone that we have our first partnership with Booster. Now, Booster is the high school sports #1 athletic fundraising for teams and groups. And their owner and CEO is a good buddy of mine, go to church with him, and a great guy. And instead of me telling you what it is, I'm going to bring him on. So Chris Carneal, thanks for joining us.
Jeff, thanks so much. So excited to sponsor Pure Athlete. Love your message, love your vision, love the heart and the values behind it. I'm a former college athlete. I'm a coach of my boys and my daughters as well, basketball and baseball. And our company I started 20 years ago, we work with schools, K through 12, and we serve them by raising funds. The past 20 years, we've raised schools, teams, and groups over $600 million, and we want to continue to serve more schools. So if you're interested in hearing how we can come to your sports team, your school, or your group, choosebooster.com.
Again, go to choosebooster.com. Chris, thanks for being a part of this. A big supporter of youth athletics, high school athletics, and we're looking forward to a good partnership with you, man.
Absolutely. Love what you guys are doing. Look forward to serving and helping schools raise funds.
So welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm excited about this second half of our episode here. I've slid down a chair because we've got two great guests here. You know, Brad, we talked in the first half all about concussions, about what they are, what they aren't. We talked about, how do you treat them? We've reserved the second half to talk more importantly about how do you prevent them. So why don't you tell us about what's next?
Yeah, we found out this new piece of safety equipment called the Guardian Cap, and it has recently been approved by the NFL to be worn during the games. Now, it's been worn in practices by a lot of major colleges, and today we've got two representatives here of Guardian Sports, Aaron Hansen and Jake Hansen. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're glad y'all are here, not just two representatives.
Yeah. One's the
founders
co-founder.
of the company.
Yeah, well, sorry about that. Yeah, I undersold you guys. I apologize.
We're excited about having
wigs.
you guys here. They're actually local here, and folks all over the country. You may have heard of Guardian Caps, but we want to dig into it a little more here today. So why don't y'all just start off and tell us a little bit about how you got started and how you got into this?
Absolutely. Lee and I started a material science company almost 30 years ago. So the purpose of the Hansen Group is to solve problems, and it's all through chemistry. Lee's a chemical engineer geek from Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech, I like that.
Yeah, and so we solve problems for a living, right? And then in 2010, we started to hear about the concussion crisis and what was happening with these players who love their sport, but were having repercussions from it. And so we felt like Guardian chose us more than we chose it. There was a call to action, and I think a lot of people were saying, hey, somebody needs to do something. And we felt as though if we could, we should. And so we tackled it.
How long did it take you to come up with the Guardian Cap concept?
From the time that we really started in our kitchen, we had a facility over in Alpharetta, Georgia, where we did all the chemistry stuff. So this was a total new realm for us. This was foam, and it was material science in a different way. So a lot was done at our kitchen counter for a couple years. And then we started testing, and we wanted to make sure that we had enough testing under our belt because we do feel very responsible that it help and not hurt. And so 2012 was the first launched product. So good 2 years.
So we ought to back up a little bit. And, we're in July and football season is about to crank up,
right.
Not just college and NFL, but at the youth level as well, which is what you're primarily here to talk about because most of our audience is interested in youth sports. So Guardian Caps is all about football.
Right.
So why don't y'all tell us about the invention of the cap? I know you've got a couple here for those of us who are watching. So tell us a little bit about the technology.
Yeah, so the technology of the Guardian Cap it's a really simple machine overall. All it is a soft shell cover that goes on the outside of a traditional plastic football helmet. So what it does is it works in two primary ways. One is it absorbs the impact forces and decelerates that impact over time. And two is it's actually decoupled from the helmet itself. So it's connected through 4 points of contact, as well as this elastic piece on the back to make it one size fits all. So the impact force, rather than going directly into one spot in the athlete's helmet, is actually decelerated around the outside of the shell itself. So it's a very simple technology. That's the primary benefit. What's interesting is we found a lot of secondary benefits with the cap as well. So one of those that we tested out was actually it reduces heat and temperature on athletes' heads by up to 15 degrees by absorbing the heat into the Guardian Cap rather than directly impacting the athlete's head. Secondly, we found that there was a benefit when it came to vibration and noise frequencies. There's been a lot of studies with military and those types of incidences that any sort of overpressure or noise, like when you hear two hard shell helmets hitting each other, that it can impact an athlete and potentially cause brain injuries. And then lastly, we found a benefit when it comes to secondary and ancillary blows, not only just head to head, but head to knee, head to shoulder. It's an interesting story. The reason why the NFL actually bought Guardian Caps for the first time was the Los Angeles Rams, the first year, 2021, that they had Matt Stafford on the team. In his first preseason practice, he threw a pass, over-rotated, hit his thumb on a defensive lineman's helmet, and almost fractured his thumb. The next day, Sean McVay called us up and said, I want Guardian Caps for my entire team. So they loaded out their entire team the first year in Guardian Caps, all 100 athletes, and ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. I'm not going to say that's because of us, but
Why not?
Yeah.
but why not?
Sure sounds great.
Yeah.
So what's your relationship now with the NFL? And talk about this new ruling. That
So
you
the
came up with.
NFL, we were first on their radar in, I'd probably say 2016. And that's when they were really trying to tackle the head injury crisis that they were seeing from their former players. They launched a challenge in 2017 called their Head Health Tech Challenge, which is a mouthful. And we submitted and won that challenge. So that put us on their radar to where they started testing our product. Now, at the same time, you got to remember, we started with South Carolina 2012, Clemson right after. So these feeder programs, right? These Power 5, Power 4 teams that are feeding the NFL in the draft, these guys have all worn them. So they all had feedback to give the NFL, like, man, I was fresh for game day. I felt better after practice. If we have this option at Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee, why don't I have that option in the NFL? So they heard what their players were saying, but they had to do their due diligence. Of course. And so, they tested us for a little while, and they started paying attention to all of the different data feedback from these college NCAA programs. So like Jake said, they allowed it in 2020, 2021, and then they had such phenomenal feedback that they mandated it in 2022, which surprised the heck out of us, but mandated in 2022.
Yeah, Aaron and Lee were leaving church one day on, what was it, in March or April, and got a call and said, hey, in the next month, can you outfit all 32 teams, all offensive and defensive linemen with Guardian Caps? And we said, figure it out. Yeah. So
can we? I don't know, but we're going to figure it out. That's what we did. And so it was O-line, D-line, tight ends, and linebackers. And they did it practice only. Preseason, only through the first preseason game. So it was a really short window. And afterwards, the data was that it had reduced concussions for those position groups over 50-something% compared to the previous 3-year average. And so 2023, they expanded the mandate and they added a few more position groups, and they went through the postseason. Again, another 50-something% reduction in concussion. And so this next year, they're doing pretty much every position group except quarterbacks and kickers, right? And then through the postseason. And then they also are allowing it in games if a player chooses. So it's pretty spectacular, because we did set out to solve for that youth player. We set out for the young developing brain and to reduce the impact of all those hits over their career. Never did we ever think the NFL would come a-calling. And it was just exciting to us, because then that filters down.
Well, y'all have done great work. So it seems like the opportunity here, you've got the NFL all in now. You've got a lot of colleges that are bought in. I heard Deion Sanders is like a huge proponent, and y'all can talk about that in a minute. But we've got a lot of parents, who are our listeners, and a lot of high school athletic directors and coaches. And, what we hear about all the time is parents saying, I don't know if I want my kid to play football because of the head injuries. So it seems like, the opportunity is huge across youth sports for people to understand this. And I love the fact that it's been around a long time. Y'all have got a lot of history and a lot of data. So what do you say to those parents? How do they find out more? How do they get this equipment?
Yeah, you can reach out to us at guardiansports.com. All of our contact information is on there. We're also local in Dick's Sporting Goods and Academy Sports and Outdoors, as well as Shields. So if you want a Guardian Cap, we try and keep these really cost effective for all athletes. Our goal is not to be profit motivated. We are mission motivated. And what that looks like is getting as many athletes in Guardian Caps as possible. So when you see online, you'll see the Guardian Cap retails for about $69.99. But when you buy in bulk, you buy for teams 20 or more, you're talking mid $50 price point. So we're not trying to get rich on Guardian Caps. Our job is to football means so much to us and so much to so many different communities. If they can possibly play the sport that they love, potentially without those repercussions, why not?
Well, it's the most popular sport in the country, but the one thing that's kind of like just kind of nagging people is just what about head injuries? What about concussions? And if this is a way that the sport can continue, but even in a safer way, that's amazing. And you guys are doing great
Brad,
work.
because we hear from so many college programs and now high school programs that some of them are actually wearing them in games, which why not? You know, these guys want to make it to the college level. And with NIL deals, it's kind of like, you know, we need to be as healthy as we can going forward. And so, you know, a lot of these athletes are asking for it now, which is super, super cool. But it's one size fits all, like Jake said, and they can wear the same cap, you know, from the time they're 8, 9, 10, all the way through, you know, to the college programs. And, you know, you're looking, if they last maybe 4 or 5 years for a youth, you're looking at $12 a year, something like that.
I mean, data wise, when it comes to football, and how scary it can be for certain parents to get involved with it. Purdue did a study a few years ago that the average high school lineman takes between 1,000 to 1,500 hits to the head every single season. A non-lineman takes between 500 to 1,000 hits to the head. That's consistent car crashes, essentially, every single time that these athletes are going into. Boston University says that for every 2.6 years that you play football, your risk of CTE doubles. And I mean, that's starting at a high school player that maybe has the opportunity to make it to college. You're talking at least 8 years before they ever get to their first professional contract. Not to mention some of these youth players. It's scary statistics, but what we have the opportunity to do is potentially reduce those ramifications for these athletes over time. So if they can play this sport that they love without feeling that impact and by reducing those repercussions, that's what our goal is. And extending not only for these athletes, but potentially for their families down the line, because what happens is you play high school or youth football, you think, oh, nothing's going to happen to me. But I mean, we knew NFL athletes. We worked with Jerome Bettis, Tim Lester, Freddie McCreary, Mark Kelso, and these guys would have to sit in a dark room once a week with nothing around them because it was just the ramifications of their time playing football where they thought they were just providing for their families. It's coming back to haunt them.
Sure.
So how do we try and reduce that over time? And how can we
there's always an
benefit
opportunity
them?
to make things better. Like you guys, I mean, there's so many benefits to football. There just are. And if you can do it in a safer way, why not? Why not? And it is also, you know, we hear from a lot of the college programs and high school programs now that it's also about hand injuries. It's fingers getting caught between two helmets. And, you know, the brain area is a scary thing to talk about. But, you know, what about helmet to knee and elbow and ribs and that kind of stuff? Make it better. There's no reason not to.
Yeah.
Now, concussions is not just an issue with football; it's with other sports as well. So, are you guys working on those type of sports and finding solutions there?
Absolutely. We partnered with Zenith this year to do a loop, which is just a headband, and that's perfect for flag football, 7-on-7, even cheerleading, volleyball, soccer. You know, trying to take that impact off of those sports as well.
We were able to create that. It's the highest impact reduction, but lowest cost product on the market. So only $49.99, and it's a great multi-sport product. Our Guardian Cap, we also recently shrunk it down and introduced it to the hockey space for the first time this year. So we took a look at what are the highest concussion rates in sports. American football is number 1, cheerleading number 2, women's and men's ice hockey rounds out the top 5. So anything we can do is what we're always looking to help.
And we always said it's in practice, so what does it matter? There's no mirrors in practice. But now that so many are asking to wear it in games, it kind of surprises us. So we're working on making it better looking and adding decals and all that. So stay tuned for that. We understand that looks matter to players and performance matters to players. You know, we're a company based around making sports safer, where players want to make performance better. And so, you know, what we say is, hey, you got to make it to game day if you want to make a difference. So, you know, what you look like in practice shouldn't be an obstacle.
No, and it's just people getting used to it.
Yeah.
You know, my kids laugh at me. We just watched Stanley Cup, and I tell them, you know, when the Atlanta Flames were in town back in my day, nobody wore helmets. There'd be like one person on the team that wore a helmet.
Isn't that crazy?
And
Oh,
of course, everybody wears them today,
Mm-hmm.
and so it gives you're used to them, and they're a huge safety, you know, plus. 10 years from now, you guys they're going to be everywhere.
I hope so. I hope that we can provide parents a little bit of peace of mind, and coaches, you know, feel better knowing that they're doing absolutely everything that they can. So, as organizations like the NFL, and we're also mandated by the CFL, and so as organizations like that keep releasing data, that really helps, because it shows that it's doing what we say it's doing, which is pretty validating.
You guys are going to have a great legacy, I think, in all these sports, and we appreciate what you do.
Yeah, thanks so much for being on here. Before we go, just tell us one more time, you know, where folks can find out the information and actually get hold of these helmets.
Yeah, just go to guardiansports.com, and all of our contact information is right there, and you can reach us from there.
We love to have a conversation with anybody. You call, we pick up the phone.
Well, that's awesome. Aaron and Jake, thank you so much for being with us today. This kind of wraps up this whole episode about safety, particularly in football, but in a lot of sports as well. We hope you'll share it with your friends. We hope you'll share it with coaches and athletic directors. This is a really important topic. So thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.
Hey guys, Jeff Rancour here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete, and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.